It's 22 minutes to 8. The hospital that Nikki Graham was treated at before she died is investigating the circumstances of her death. The Big Brother star, who had suffered from anorexia for a large part of her life, died on the 9th of April, a day after leaving Dorset County Hospital. A spokesperson for Dorset County Hospital NHS Foundation Trust told the BBC a full internal investigation is currently underway. This is in line with standard procedures following any sudden death. Well, Nikki's mum spoke on This Morning before she died, saying that during the pandemic and lockdown, her eating disorder had spiralled. So how much of an impact has the pandemic had on people living with conditions like anorexia? Well, Georgie Lazari is from First Steps, a charity for people in Derby affected by eating disorders.
It's affected different groups of people in different ways. There are people out there who, until the pandemic, didn't believe that they had any kind of disordered eating at all, and having more time with their own thoughts, having their routines disrupted, hearing a lot about health, exercise, eating well on the news has really made them hone in on their own eating habits and potentially change them for the more detrimental to their health. It's caused a lot of obsession. It's brought about feelings of anxiety and depression, which can massively impact on eating habits. It has also been very tricky for those who already experience an eating difficulty. It's caused some people to relapse back into disorders that they were in recovery from. It's caused people who were already very unwell to become more severely unwell. But on the flip side, there are those hope stories whereby some downtime, some calm, some perhaps opportunities to focus on themselves and get well and get supported, they've improved. But unfortunately, it's slightly more of a negative picture than it is a positive one.
OK, Georgie, have you seen more people come to you for help since the start of the pandemic? As you mentioned there, people have spent more time at home, more time maybe with their thoughts.
Yes, we've had increases in both adult and children and young people, up around 49% referrals coming through to First Steps for various difficulties with eating. Obviously, in the news we see, and I think we associate eating disorders with restrictive disorders, so anorexia, any problem that results in weight loss, but it's just not representative of the true case. Out there are far higher numbers of people experiencing alternative disorders such as binge eating, and bulimia is a massive problem as well. So it might not be in the trends that people think, but yeah, we're experiencing a lot more people coming to us and saying that over the last year they have really struggled with their food intake.
And Georgie, how hard is it for people to make that first step, to come to you for help and basically admit it and say, look, I really do need some support now?
It's incredibly difficult. We often say it's the hardest step anybody will take, but once you've taken it, it can get easier from there. I think one of the challenges at the moment is accessing support, like clinical support, so in mainstream NHS services, because unfortunately there are funding challenges, there are entry criteria that form a barrier for many people. So what we say at First Steps is we don't have that barrier. We don't have any sort of weight criteria. We don't require an official diagnosis to access our services at all. So we are open and accessible to all. And I think that's what makes such a difference to people. They possibly have been rejected elsewhere, and finally they've got somewhere that they can go to for support and all of the services that we provide without having to almost fight for it.
We'll hear more from Georgie from First Steps in a little while, before 8 o'clock actually. And if you're affected by anything you've just heard, or you would like some help and support, you can find it on the Action Line website, bbc.co.uk/Action Line.
Sports Scene.
Impact the pandemic's had on people living with conditions like anorexia. It follows the death of Big Brother star Nikki Graham last month after suffering from anorexia since childhood. Georgie Lazari from charity First Steps in Derby told me about why eating disorders aren't understood as well as some other mental illnesses.
It is improving, but there is still a stigma attached, an opinion that it's a choice, that somebody has chosen to do it possibly out of vanity or to look better. There's such a misconception out there that you want to look thin. And so often it's not about the aesthetics at all. Sadly, they are a result of the behaviour, but that's what you see. So you assume that that's the intention, and it isn't at all. And in the case of Nikki, there are people out there that have suffered for years and years. I mean, the average recovery time for any eating difficulty is 7 years. It's an ongoing long-term difficulty for so many, unfortunately. And she'd received some support on the NHS before. It hadn't been successful for her, so her family and friends had resorted to crowdfunding to raise the funds for her to be seen privately. From what I've read and interviews I've watched, it just seems like, unfortunately, it was too late for her.
You said it is getting better, which is an amazing step forward. And obviously, just talking about it is something that is obviously really positive. But I know there are people out there who may be worried about someone else. And I think maybe if you've got a friend or family member who maybe you can see is having difficulties, but that person maybe won't admit or open up and say, look, I need some help. What can they do in that situation if you're worried about someone else?
Denial is a massive part of many mental health problems in general, but certainly for eating difficulties. And that can be for two reasons. One, that the sufferer just does not see it, and they may have lived their life like that for such a long time. They're not aware it's disordered. The second is that they, in that instant, don't want to lose their crutch. It's their coping strategy. It's how they deal with the world and the challenges that they have in their lives. So they may not want to lose that, and it's quite difficult to alter that view for somebody. At First Steps, we do skills for carers workshops regularly. They are accessible to anybody who is concerned about a loved one, relative, or friend. And they're incredibly popular because I think when you're experiencing it yourself, it's very confusing, but even more so to try and articulate to those around you, it leaves those around you even more confused. And so it's just really challenging to articulate to somebody what's going on inside. So we are really, really backing our Skills for Carers workshops to try and support those people who are in turn trying to support their family and friends.
With regard to First Steps, how do you help people in Derby? Anyone who's listening who may need some help, what sort of things can you offer them?
We offer a huge array of services now, and it's not just local to Derby at all. We've lockdown, if we've benefited at all, our outreach has grown significantly. We actually go England wide now, but anybody listening in Derby, they can do a self-referral, so there's no need for any GP or medical intervention there. We offer support groups for people of all ages. We offer one-to-one counselling, diet and nutritional advice, skills for families, like I said earlier. We also offer meditation and yoga and creative workshops. We feel like, no two people suffer this the same, and we have a service or we have a group or we have the option to help somebody however they prefer to be helped. Some people would rather not speak in a group, they would rather get it out on paper. So we have our creative workshops. So there's something for everybody. As restrictions ease, we'll be looking to do a blended approach. So we will be getting back into our base, doing things in person, face to face, but we'll also be keeping the remote services going so that as many people as possible can access us.
That's Georgie Lazari from First Steps charity in Derby. And don't forget, if you've heard anything that you want to get some advice on, you can do that on the bbc.co.uk /action line website.